2 or 3 minutes in English, français ici. So, today, August 5th, 2018, 100 years ago, August 5th, 1918, was the beginning of a campaign we called 100 Days. Actually, it was 99 days. August 4th, November 11th, 1918 was exactly 100 days. What is 100 days? It's not a very well-known story, but it should be. Most people know about the Battle of Vimy Ridge in 1917 when the Canadian Corps took Vimy Ridge, but the 100 Days campaign was the final campaign of the First World War. French warfare was done. They were out of the trenches and advancing across open country. And it's sometimes considered the finest achievement of the Canadian Corps. The Canadian Corps was a body of the British Army at the time. They had about 125,000 men in the field. During the course of about 4 years of warfare, from the spring of 1915 until this campaign. So today we're talking about the 100 Days because it's the centennial. What it was is that in the spring of 1918, the German army on the Eastern Front basically defeated the Russians. Russia had a revolution, they pulled out of the war, they gave away enormous amounts of land to Germany, signed a treaty. Germany said, well, the United States has joined the war. They're going to be sending a lot more troops here in the next few months. We'll now shift our troops from the Eastern Front to the Western Front before the Americans get in there, and we'll finally break the stalemate on the Western Front. We'll win the war. So they launch a huge offensive. March 1918, massive bombardment, huge offensive. The Allied line bends, doesn't break. The Germans launch about 3 or 4 more offensives. Right up until July, again, they make great salience, or that's a great big bulge in the line. Allied line does not break. So, by July 1918, the German army is exhausted. They've taken 1 million casualties, 1 million. Douglas Haig, who's in command of the British Army, which includes the Canadian Corps, says, I'm going to strike the Germans at Amiens, which is a town in France where there was one of these bulges. They made this bulge. I'll strike them there. They're weakened. And I'll use the Canadian Corps. The Canadian Corps was, at that point, what he used for all his major assaults. The Germans knew this. They knew that if the Canadian Corps came into the line, there's probably going to be an assault. So what we did is we moved in secret from the Vimy sector, which hadn't been attacked during the assault, the spring offensive. At nighttime, horses, vehicles, marching, trains. The Canadian Corps is moved in secret from the Vimy sector down to Amiens, south to Amiens. In fact, we staged diversions like a baseball tournament in the Vimy sector to fool the Germans into thinking we're there to stay. So by August 7th, which would be, I guess, what, Tuesday, the Canadian Corps was in position. There was a night attack at Amiens, 6 bayonets, no bombardment, complete surprise, enormous victory. It's called the Battle of Amiens, August 8th, 1918. And it's also was turned by General Ludendorff, who was basically in charge of the German army, the Black Day of the German army. Basically broke their line and forced them back. The Hindenburg line, which was their main defense line. That was the Canadian Corps' next nut to crack. A place called the Canal du Nord, literally the Northern Canal, an unfinished canal which had been fortified. That was part of the Hindenburg line, which was the main German defense line, as I mentioned. A few weeks later, that was broken. 100 days, people say, how many battles in 100 days? Well, 100 days. Every single day, from that point onward, through the late summer, early fall of 1918, it's essentially World War II. Out of the trenches, 300 tanks in support. We've got the Australians on one side of us and the British on the other side of us. Planes in the sky, an armored car called the Canadian Autocar, which was used to great effect with machine gun mounted car. Prelude to World War II really in terms of tactics. Germans are falling back the entire time. Rumors come by early November there's going to be an armistice. What does that mean? That's just a ceasefire. Nobody knows what that really means, but the war was scheduled to end November 11th at noon in Berlin. Noon in Berlin is 11 o'clock in France. We say the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. It's actually noon in Berlin, 11 o'clock in France and Belgium. On the November 11th, 1918, the Canadians made one more attack. Because they had no idea what the terms of the armistice were going to be, they may as well keep pushing. Arthur Currie, in charge of the Canadian Corps, said, we're going to retake the Belgian town of Mons, which the British lost in 1914. Would be a symbolic victory to some extent. So we attacked and took Mons. And at 1 minute to 11, poor fellow from Nova Scotia named George Price stuck his head out of the door to wave to a pretty girl and was shot by a sniper and killed. 1 minute to 11. Then the war ended. The and there was a treaty negotiation. A couple things happened at the treaty. One, Germany was basically forced to surrender and was punished. It was rather harsh, actually, and in fact, actually, if you want to look into it, it led directly to World War II. Second thing happened is that Canada demanded its own seat at the negotiations as opposed to simply being part of the British Empire. We often look at the First World War in Canada as our War of Independence. So, this afternoon, we've got a lot of things going on. We have some special guests. We've got a group of Newfoundland, the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, which is not part of the Canadian Army at the time, but they were involved in the 100 Days. We have the Medical Corps to talk to you about the dark side, which World War I is dark anyway, the casualties, and of course our trench exhibit, which has been in existence for about 3.5 years. This is our last year for the special exhibit here at the Citadel Trench. It's 300 feet of basically like a movie set of Western Front Trench, and people tell me it's the best thing up here, and I built it, so I think they're right. Anyway, there'll be a battle demonstration this afternoon at 2 o'clock over here on the South Parade as well. So take advantage of this, because when the war ends in November, we probably won't be doing much World War I here for a little while. So thank you very much. Do you know?
That one's about half the size.
Much smaller.
Much smaller.
Yeah. So this one here, this is obviously quite a bit later. It's still a breech-loading weapon. That's much faster when you can put in the rounds from the back of the gun as opposed to sticking anything down the muzzle. But the difference is that this has a larger magazine capacity. This holds one round only. So every time after you fire, you've got to manually put in another cartridge. With the Lee Enfield, however, bolt action system. So you have a charger clip, like the one that I will be firing here, 5 rounds, and you can just fit that into the breech here and just they slide in and they fill the magazine. And then you close the bolt, pull the trigger, and to fire again, all you have to do is cycle the bolt and pull the trigger again. So you can do that up to 10 times before you have to reload. And so that's obviously you're going to put out a lot more fire downrange in a shorter period of time than you have to manually insert every round. Now, when they first started to use this weapon in the very early 20th century, they were a little bit worried that British soldiers might get a little bit carried away. They might be overzealous and use up all their ammunition too quickly. So in the earlier models of Lee Enfield, what they actually did, they had this piece of metal here. It's called magazine cutoff. So I can clip that in there, and now magically, my Lee Enfield has become a single-shot weapon, just like the Snider. And I have to manually insert every single round. And the idea was that they would charge their magazines, and then initially start fighting using only single shots, and they could only open up the magazine if they were ordered to do so by their officers or by their sergeants. The realities of modern warfare, though, dictated that that was ridiculous, and that you needed to put more fire down range. So eventually what you see are these being removed from weapons altogether.
All right, so we're just about to get started here. Now you'll see we're going to be putting in hearing protection for this, but that's what we do this every single day. So if you don't wear hearing protection, well, we're going to see some hearing damage over the days. But if you guys hear this just once today, you'll be completely fine. But basically, the best time to plug your ears. If you want to plug your ears or take a snapshot, is when I bring the rifle up to my shoulder. Now, so you guys, you're trying to stay right around there, but if you want a better view, actually right along here, just as long as you don't pass the number 10 door here.